YouTube battle community, Brian Wilson fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Brian Wilson's 2015 album, and at the time of making this video, his most recent LP, No Peer Pressure, released on Capitol Records. And cool enough, they put it on the old Capitol Purple label, so it looks like kind of 50s retro or late 70s retro, so kind of a cool look on the actual labels themselves. This album got a lot of flack when it came out. It had a lot of negativity surrounding it, literally due to the fact that he had a lot of guest appearances on this from current pop groups and acts at the time. Literally before it even came out, he had to make a post on Facebook to be like, hey, you guys haven't even heard the album yet. We're pretty proud of what we did. Just give it a chance, give it a try. Just listen to it first before you make a bunch of comments. I vividly remember all this happening when this album came out. The build-up, the lead-up to it coming out was strange and changed a lot in that time. The life of this album kind of went through several different changes before it actually became what we have here today. So, long story short, after the Beach Boys had their 2012 reunion, with the whole That's Why God Made the Radio album, the next step, Brian was like, alright, let's go back in the studio and do it again. And then that never happened. So this was originally intended to be a brand new Beach Boys album, which is why Blondie, Al, and David are on here, because they were around and they wanted to be a part of it. So that happened. But this album itself went through generations after that as well. He eventually started hanging out with Jeff Beck, and they were going to do a collaborative thing together. They did tour for a while throughout a lot of 2013, or like the last half of 2013, they toured together. And they did record a handful of tracks. We don't know how many songs they actually recorded. Could have been a dozen, could have been 6, could have been 4, we have no idea. But basically that kind of fizzled out because Brian felt like the standards that he had for making music weren't happening. Their joint thing worked better on stage. It wasn't really happening in the studio, and that's okay. And then eventually he started to work with these newer artists, basically because he was talking to his daughters and his kids, saying like, who's cool right now? And they were like, you know what, you'd be really cool if you worked with She and Him, or Casey Musgraves, or whatever. And he was kind of like, okay, I'll give it a try. So that's what they did. He got together with Joe Thomas. He's been working with Joe Thomas now for 20-odd years. Again, a lot of people have a hard time with him because of claims that there's auto-tune on this thing, claims that he was behind That's Why God Made the Radio, and then the Imagination album and Stars and Stripes. So for a lot of Beach Boys fans, they're not super stoked on this guy. I don't hear a whole lot of auto-tune on this album myself. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I don't hear a lot of it. I remember hearing some about That's Why God Made the Radio, but it's an album released in the 2000s. It might have auto-tune on it. It's just how it goes. Overall, though, this album is kind of a mixed bag, and it definitely goes down different avenues that you wouldn't expect Brian Wilson to go down. And I think that's the hard time that people have with this thing, especially critics and longtime fans. But if you're a fan of music, you should be aware of the fact that sometimes they're going to do something different just to try it out. They're not going to put out the same album over and over again unless you're AC/DC. Not putting down AC/DC, just saying, like, someone said, there was somebody online that said this is the same guy that wrote Surf's Up, Until I Die, and all that stuff. Yeah, it is. He was also like 24 at the time, and he's like 64 or something when this album came out. So there's a gap in between there. People change, times change, your emotions change, your feelings change. The whole thing's different, man. You can't be like, well, because Paul McCartney wrote A Day in the Life in 1967, obviously he's got to write songs just as good as that. No, you don't. Like, it just doesn't work that way. You, in your moment, you're doing your reflective, creative thing at that time, and then the next time you do something else, it'll be different. That's why bands can never go back and make a song that they would have made 20 years ago, because you're not that same person anymore. You've changed. Your style of playing has changed. Your writing has changed. So much of it's different. So that's why you're never going to get bands going back in the studio and making what they made 30 or 40 years ago. That doesn't exist anymore. Those times, the whole thing is gone. So with that long explanation said, you really need to take a look at this album as a fresh start, something completely different, and just let him try it. Let him expand and see where he goes. Let him be creative. Let him work with other people. for being this far into his career, still making interesting music and wanting to try it with new people. What's wrong with that? Let him do his own thing. Let him run wild. He don't care. This album, for me, isn't one of my favorite Brian albums by far, but I do like it. I think there's some really good songs on here, and I think the collaborations that they did choose to keep on here are interesting. They apparently had Frank Ocean on here and Lana Del Rey. She would have sung the last song, which I'm kind of glad they went with Brian on that because that's such a beautiful, amazing song. She probably could have done a good job with it, but I really think Brian doing it is what makes it. So yeah, this album did peak in number 28 in America, pretty damn good, and number 25 in the UK. And the vinyl and the CD version have a completely different track list. It's a complete mess. And I haven't played the record in a while, and I was used to the CD, so I was putting this thing on and being like, whoa, what the heck's going on here? The last song isn't even the last song on here. I'm not sure why they didn't do that, but anyways. So, I mean, the album opens up strong enough. It opens up with This Beautiful Day, which is an absolutely beautiful track. One thing I gotta give Brian credit for, his voice is still super focused and he delivers when he really wants to. When he's in the zone in the studio, he's got that perfection he has to get towards. He can really do it. He can hit the soft notes, he can hit the high notes, he can hit the low notes. His voice is still super dynamic. You know, a lot of people kind of slag on him for his voice these days. I really think it still sounds good. He can really do it if he wants to. But this track, his voice is drenched in echo, which is really nice, and it plays really well on top of this light little piano fill. And like I said, he hits a couple of surprising notes that you wouldn't expect him to hit these days, but he can still hit some of these high notes. And the group sings with him, and there's some really nice horns that kind of float gently throughout, but a nice introduction. Really reminds me of Gone Are the Days, from That's What God Made the Radio. A nice introduction to get you into the mood of the album. So, following this one, I got the CD as well. I think we both were on track for Runaway Dancer. Yeah, Runaway Dancer is the next one here. I'm going to jump back and forth. Runaway Dancer featuring Sabu. This track is actually very interesting, and apparently a lot of it was written in 1998 but never recorded until they started working on this album. There's some cool little finger snaps. The warm sax solos throughout this thing give it a little bit of a cheese factor, but it kind of works. Then it all leads into this really funky dance beat, which you would never expect Brian to work in a field where he's making this kind of music. But again, let him give it a try. I mean, the song itself is really dancey and catchy. It's ready for the club. I mean, who knows if it ever made it there, but it can work there, for sure. There are moments where Brian's melodic trickery does come into play, so you know he's there in the background somewhere. And I think Sabu's voice on this works really well, too. Definitely, I think this is the case for a lot of songs on this album. If it didn't say Brian Wilson on it and it was just Sabu, you might be like, alright, that's a cool little pop track, but because it's got Brian's voice on there, you're kind of hearing this going like, ooh, I don't know, I'm not sure about this, but it's really not too bad. It's a little out of his style, but I think he manages it well. Saturday Night, nope, where is Saturday Night? Saturday Night is the second to last song on the CD, and it's the third song on this on the LP. But, alright, let's just do it. Saturday Night featuring Nate Roos from Fun Dot. This song really isn't too bad. I like this one a lot, actually. I think Nate does a great job vocally on this one. The melody on it is very pleasant. It's kind of a warm, welcoming, soft melody. It's very sweet, and much more of a Brian feel on this one, too. You can see him singing this one. But I love the really spirited background vocals. They're really upbeat, they're really happy, they're really focused and into it. And Brian's vocal moments on this track are really cool, too. I think they're really special, lend themselves a nice little unique quality to counterbalance the Nate-ness of what's going on here. The bridge on this track for me is total classic Brian. I love the bridge on this track a lot. It makes the song for me, and the way it flows into that sweet guitar solo is nice. The whole track is lighthearted and fun. Just a nice song. Nothing wrong with that. On the Island is the next track, which, hey, we jump back into order here with track 4, On the Island, just like the CD. This has She and Him, Zoe and Matt, or M. Ward, rather. Is his name Matt? I can't remember. I think it's Matt. It might not be, but it's M. Ward. And Zoe Deschanel. But, this is totally nailing that Tropicana tropical vibe feel. You feel like you're on an island. You feel like you're lost on this breezy holiday. The sun is out. The trees are wafting a little bit. Sand on your feet. Nice drink in your hand. Watching the waves. Not a care in the damn world. It totally feels like that. And Zoe sings so beautifully here. I love her voice anyway. I've been a fan of hers forever now. Since the first She and Him album and all that stuff. She's got a great voice. You can really do a lot with her voice too. That you get a bit of that Girl from Ipanema vibe, which is cool. I can dig that. And the little chimes, the little bleats of organs that kind of are scattered throughout this thing, the shuffling drums, it just takes you away to that carefree, lazy place. The escapism that they create here really is powerful. It totally works. And that's the end of side one. That's the thing. This album is 4 sides, and there's 4 songs on each side. So that's what, 8 and 8. You could have totally made this one album here, man. It's a little bit crammy. What's that, 8 and 8? Yeah, that's kind of pushing it. Side 2 opens with The Right Time, which at this point we're completely lost on the CD. But The Right Time, Al is from a time machine at this point. Al's voice is straight out of 1966. He's never changed. His voice has never changed. It sounds exactly like he did in Help Me Rhonda. It's unbelievable how he sounds so youthful, and just that's Al Jardine's voice. I love the vocal play in the chorus on this one, the blend, the whole catchy, could it be the right time, super memorable. The expansive, sort of wide production on this one, I think benefits the song itself too. It's kind of got like an airy kind of atmosphere feel to it. Brian is in classic production mode, right down to the wood block click, click things. Dave's solo is simple and very effective, and I love the way he plays it so soulfully. This is an excellent track. It's got all the parts that make a fun little Beach Boys-esque song, and there's 3 of them on here, so it's kind of a Beach Boys song. Which leads to Whatever Happened, which on the CD I think is actually the 3rd song. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. For me, it's an instant classic. I love when Brian sings about the past and how things are different now. I really like that. This song itself is about looking backwards and trying to look forward at the same time, realizing that things aren't the way they used to, and that's okay, and you gotta kind of work with what you got and how to move forward and see what the future might hold. And it's okay that it's different and scary and unknown and things have changed in the past. One of those things. That's life. But Al's voice that pops up throughout this track is unbelievable. For me, this is one of the best songs Brian's written in a long time. Just a really well-constructed song, very well executed. The musicianship on it is super tight, and it really hits you in the emotions. I think it's just a great song. That's it. Guess He Had to Be There with Casey Musgraves. This song, for me, could have been a single. This has single potential qualities to it. There's so much happiness that just shines with exuberance throughout this track. It's upbeat and in your face and commands your attention in such a heartwarming, happy way. Brian's vocals are especially happy on this track, and he sounds so in and with it and just totally focused and ready to take on the world. He doesn't sound like he would have sounded on Whatever Happened, where it's like an older guy looking back in his life, hearing a song like Guess You Had to Be There, sounds like he's young, excited and fresh, and ready for the next thing. Which is so fun to hear him get excited about new music. I think, as we all love Brian so much, and we all love what he's written over the years, hearing him get excited on track makes you excited, because you think, oh good, there could be more, there's more to come. This is great. But Casey Musgrave, not to downplay her. Her vocals on this song are fantastic. I think she works really well and brings that spirited, youthful element to it as well. And there's parts that she sings that Brian could never sing, about waking up with your friends all over the floor and stuff. Like, it wouldn't work. But like with Casey Musgraves, she's still young enough to, sing about that kind of stuff, and it's fun and really effective. This could have been a single. I really think this could have been a single. Tell Me Why is the next track on here, which is a complete rework and rewrite and change of heart from the original Beatles track. I'm joking, of course. As Brian would say, this track is mellow. It's really mellow. It's relaxed, it's string-laden, it's soft. It's woodblock heavy. There was woodblock all over this thing. But I love the build-up to the wonderful chorus that Al gets to sing with Brian joining in on him. It's super memorable because it's so warm. It's a very calm track with nice moments of energy. I love the Buckingham's-esque horn section that happens throughout this thing. Definitely one of the more memorable tracks on this album for sure. I just like when Al and Brian sing together. Their pairing of their voices works really well. Side 2, this is where things get completely screwed up. So like, Don't Worry, One Kind of Love, and Somewhere Quiet, I think were like the... Oh no, I'm Feeling Sad, Don't Worry, and Somewhere Quiet were the 3 songs they shoved into the middle of this one. Yeah, they shoved those into the middle. This is the deluxe Target version. The original version just had, what, 13 or 12 songs? I can't do math. Something like that. And they threw these three songs into the middle of the CD, and on the record it's just someone just closed their eyes, threw a dart at a board, and whatever happened, happened. So Don't Worry opens up side 3. The verses on this track sound a lot like just a bunch of pre-choruses, which is kind of a cool construction for a song. I like the way they execute that. It works really well. It's kind of a fun way to present a track, and I think it works very well for Brian and the Gang. It's a really energetic, propulsive song. Really funky guitars, lots of horns, some really cool organ riffs, and Brian vocally sounds on the top of his game. This is also single-worthy for me. The fact that this was a bonus track, this should have been on the album just as a standard thing. Fantastic song. It's an upbeat, great track. I love the fade out on this thing. I think it adds to the magic of the whole thing. Cool track. One Kind of Love. This is from the movie For Love and Mercy. And I'm glad they added it to this album because it was hard to come across that Love and Mercy soundtrack for a while there. I think it's more available now, but cool that it's on here. I mean, it's a classic Brian. I love how quickly he changes a lot of the chords throughout this track from minors to majors. There's a lot of that on here. Really curious, I'd say, chord changes. But excellent lead vocal. I love the heavy drums throughout this thing. And it makes you think of the movie, and the movie was so damn good. So, love to have that addition on here. Sail Away. A lot of people were slacking this one, too. I love it. I think, having Blondie on there is great. A lot of people calling it like Soup John B. Jr. or, the washed up Equate Diet RC Cola version of Soup John B. Get off, man. It's cool. It's a fun little sea shanty-esque song that changes the chorus midway. I love the big upbeat choruses. I like Brian taking the lead. It's Al's voice again sounds like he's never aged. He just stepped out of that time machine from 1965 and said, hey, I'm here to record. I'm going to go back now. It's a great track. It's got like 3 or 4 of the Beach Boys on it. Like, it's really cool. Can't say enough about it. And then the side C ends with the last song, which is such a no. They should have just thrown that onto the other side somehow, mixed it up even more, ended it with the last song on the last song. This is truly one of the most poignant, beautiful pieces of work he's ever written. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed this track. It's melancholic, it's soulful, it's a total goodbye of sorts. And it's got one of his most amazing lines ever with, there's never enough time for the ones that you love. That's a brilliant line that says so much. But it's amazing for me that this far in his career, he can still tug at your heartstrings and make something so original and so new that still affects you. That's just the power of Brian Wilson, is what it comes down to. He can write these tracks that still blow you away after all these years. Side D starts off with I'm Feeling Sad. This song's not too bad. He sings about going through the motions of what it's like when you're running solo, basically after a breakup, or, wanting to be with somebody but you're on your own. I like the construction of the track itself, how it ends with just like the vocal line there. It's got a little bit of a Sesame Street bounce to it, not in a bad way. It's kind of fun, but not my favorite track on the album. I think this was a bonus track. Yeah, it was a bonus track. Somewhere Quiet was also a bonus track, and I really enjoyed this one. It's more mellow, and it would totally fit on Beach Boys Today, if you ask me. It's got that same kind of vibe. Lots of 50s-esque string arrangements and song construction with Al on here as well. His vocals on here, again, are amazing, but this song for me sounds like something Brian would have written in the early 60s, like 64, 65, around there, when he was trying to do his more introspective stuff before the drugs started to make their way into the music. Definitely Beatles 65. Beach Boys Today, I think it really would fit on there very well. Love that song. Everyone's on top of their game on that track for sure. Musicianship-wise, singing-wise, knockout song. Half Moon Bay, which I think is like track 5 on the CD, but it's like buried away at the end back here. This song is very cool. It's instrumental. Come on. It's instrumental. And for me, it's like a descendant of Passing By off the Friends album. It's definitely got those moments of slightly exotic sounding percussion instruments. And it's a very expressive, open song that allows itself to breathe. And I think you can take it in and kind of let it grow with you, which is pretty cool. Soft bass plays throughout this thing. Very soulful, smooth harmonies. Nice cymbal washes. I love the mixture of saxophone and trumpets washing against each other as well. A lot of texture to this song. It's a lot of fun to listen to. So I'm glad that's on the album because it's very cool to see Brian and Mark Isham do their collaborative thing here with that. And then the last song on here, Our Special Love, which I think is a crap way to end the album, but what are you going to do? I like the bass work in the beginning that matches along with the vocals, but overall, this is not my favorite song on the album. It falls pretty flat for me. It doesn't really strike anything. It sounds a little forced, you know, between trying to make something happen. It sounds like a collaborative effort that was like an afternoon writing session that just didn't really go anywhere, but that's just my little tiny opinion on my little tiny corner of the internet. The CD itself came with 2 bonus tracks. This, again, the Target version. This came with a demo of In the Back of My Mind that Brian did in the mid-70s, just horsing around, adding some new words to it. And then a nice little version of Love and Mercy on there as well. So, very cool track. I love the album cover. I love the artwork on this as well. His daughter, Daria, took all the pictures. I'm not sure if she took this one or not, but that's a great picture of Brian back there, looking all happy and chill. But the inside has a very nice picture of Brian at the piano. Love that picture. Very cool. And this was actually the Barnes & Noble exclusive version that came with a signed picture. So basically, it was an album cover slick with his signature on it. I've got it framed in my bedroom, so I look at it every night before I go to bed. But I like the inside jackets as well. They all kind of look like this with this nice little blue wash of water. Nice pictures on the bottom. There's a picture of Brian hanging out wearing sneakers. And then here's the actual records themselves with that classic purple Capitol label. Love that. Really sharp. Overall, like I said earlier, this is not my favorite Brian album, but it's really not bad at all. I mean, I would take this probably over his 1988 album, but yeah, where I'd rank this, I don't know, because my favorite solo album but from him is probably That Lucky Old Son, but this one's really decent. I like the collaborative effort on here. I like having the other singers on here for a change. It's cool because you get to try new territories with these different singers and then old territories with the original Beach Boys on here too, some of them. So you get that blend of both worlds, a little bit old, a little bit of new, a little bit of both. So for Brian to be at this point in his career, this was 2015, for him to want to try something completely out of left field like this and see how it worked, I give him a thumbs up for that, man. Takes credit, takes guts. And to even go onto social media before the album came out and said, hey, whoa, slow down, guys. Before you bash it, at least listen to the damn thing. Then bash it. Like, just give us a chance. We worked really hard on this thing. Cut us some slack. So I'd probably give this thing like a 7 out of 10. It's not my favorite. I would have chopped a couple of songs off and maybe made it a little bit more focused or condensed. There's a lot of songs on here. Not a bad thing, but I would have maybe rearranged the order a little bit, taken a couple of things off, kind of closed it in a little bit. Again, just my tiny little opinion on my tiny little corner of the internet. So with that, my name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with Brian Wilson, no peer pressure. And that's it. Going with a 7 out of 10 on this one. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this album. And, you know, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Let's talk about it. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.